The legislative arm of the government is a very strategic institution of government. Now, one that is very instrumental to the development of any democratic natured country. The National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, Nilds, is a knowledge management hub and also a research organ of the National Assembly. How is the institution pushing its goals to foster robust legislative benefit for parliamentarians and the polity generally? My guest will let us into some of those intricacies that make up this body, as well as governance in Nigeria. Welcome to On the Spot. My name is Blessing Abu. My guest holds a bachelor's degree in political science from the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, and also a master's degree in international and strategic studies from the University of Jos. For his PhD, he followed up in international relations, but from the University of Abuja. He served the previous administration at the federal level as deputy chairman, Nigeria Economic Council, and also chairman of sub-technical committee. My guest was also the former Minister for National Planning and deputy chairman, National Planning Commission. Well, was also the Nigerian delegate to the United Nations Ordinary General Assembly in 2014. He was appointed the second Director General of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies in May 2019. So a year on, what is it for my guest? On the spot this week is Professor Abubakar Olanrewaju Sulaiman. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
1 year on, DG Nilds. It's your familiar terrain, it's a familiar turf. Share with us what has been the journey for this 1 year.
Thank you very much. The journey has been very tough, it has been very rosy, it has been very exciting anyway, because as you rightly said, it's an environment that I'm very used to. And so taking up the challenge then, a year ago, wasn't a problem as such. One, it has to do with governance, it has to do with legislation, it has to do with democratic studies, and most importantly, it has to do with impacting knowledge. So, as a lecturer that I was, and I am still anyway, and as a Democrat that I am, and as a trainer of the legislature over the years, I think it was a familiar terrain. So it did not take me so much, a time to get down to business, do the needful, ensure I align with the mandate of the institutes, and mobilize resources, both my staff and material resources to get things done. So it was an exciting, and so far so good. We have done a lot.
Great. Democratic governance, democracy, the people understanding why their legislators or their representatives will have to be at the particular arm of government and speak on their behalf is what, in totality, Nilds is trying to help raise the bar for. Yeah. Share with us the mandates beyond what I've just said and how well suited is it for us 20 years on into democracy?
I think the mandate is very clear, but before you talk about the mandates, we should understand, underscore the essence of the institute. The institute came on board to fill in the gap, the knowledge gap that existed over the years at the level of the parliamentarian. You see, unlike the executive, the judiciary, the legislature is one organ of government in Nigeria, or even Africa, that could not be nurtured up to the stage of the other organs. Because of the incessant military intervention in African politics. You see, when the military took over government, the executive were left, to lay. The judiciary still remains, but the major casualty of the military intervention, most times, the legislature. So the experiences, the skills, the knowledge with which legislature need to acquire and, you know, work with over the year was not there. So in 1999, when democracy came back on board, the legislature then, and most importantly the National Assembly management, now thought, look, we have created a lot of gap. The military did not allow this organ of government to have the requisite skills, the requisite knowledge, the requisite experience to work with. What do we do? So what we do then is, let us have a department within the National Assembly that will be charged with research, with training, with impacting knowledge, which, you know, that will serve as a resource base for the parliamentarians, for their support staff, and for other, you know, clerks within the National Assembly. That is why the institute came on board. Initially, it was known as a policy analysis research project under National Assembly. But by 2012, it's metamorphosed into what we call Nilds. That is National Institute for Legislative Study. And by 2018, an amendment came on board to now match what we call the democratic component of it to the institutes, which now make it National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. So essentially, the main goal of the institute is to serve as a resource base, a knowledge base for the parliamentarian, not only at National Assembly. That needs to be made very clear, because it's a national institute. It's not a national institute for those in Abuja alone. It's a national institute that is there, you know, to provide knowledge, to provide training, to provide skills, to serve as a research base for Nigerian legislature, so both at the local government, the state, and at the federal level.
So how has this gone through for the various tiers of government, since it's beyond the Abuja setting? Engagement from time to time, consultation, what kind of reception has it received? Or are you getting also from across the board?
I think let me make this one very clear. In terms of the National Assembly members, the senators, House of Rep members, and their support staff, the experiences so far, even before I came on board, have been very, very resounding in terms of how they receive our services, in terms of how they request for services, in terms of how they allow us, you know, dove into what they do. For instance, one of the major roles of the institute is to provide technical assistance to National Assembly members in the areas of motion drafting, in the areas of bill drafting, in the areas of you know, research. The nexus between the two bodies, that is our own institute, and the major, the parent body, which is the National Assembly, has been very, very rewarding in terms of the requests coming from them. Our policy brief, bill drafting, motion draftings, policy analysis, either come in terms of demand driven or something coming from them. The members of National Assembly, the senators and House of Rep members have been making use of the institute in their workings.
Appreciative of that which the institute is set to undertake and has been doing over the period, and some of these fallouts of what is not adding up to have robust kind of governance through the legislature, like where people have pointed accusing fingers from time to time. Okay, we have perhaps a sleeping legislature or a rubber stamp legislature, or not having it effectively. We'll take a look at some of those areas where there are constraints, however, in reaching out to the people and being on the same page. Let me draw the attention, the fact that you've read out some of the areas that the Institute is helping out. Policy brief and analysis, also motion, bills, drafting, and all of that. Recently, as the situation is bringing on with COVID-19, coronavirus pandemic generally across the world is making the normal to be abnormal now and the abnormal to be the normal. Now there are bills before that have come up for the legislature, and already the public's outcries. Why now? Why do we need to be forced into some certain things, and why not? Exactly what is happening with the bills that is there. We know there's the infectious bill. There's also the quarantine one. Take time to take at least the hottest ones now that is giving the public the disaffection towards the National Assembly.
You see, democracy, or again, to be a politician under this kind of situation, will be very unfortunate at times. For instance, I don't know what the speaker will want to benefit if it comes out with such a bill, and Nigerians are now, some section of Nigerians are now crying foul of that bills. They should look at it from the point of sincerity. What we are facing now, in terms of the COVID-19, is an emergency situation.
Exactly.
It's like a war situation. And when you are at war, because war entails security, wars entails threat to lives and property. Threat to life and property doesn't come only in the areas of military hardwares. It will come as a result of diseases, as we're having it now.
Sure.
It will come as a result of environmental degradation, as we do have it. It will come in form of so many ways. So what we are facing now is akin to a war situation. And in a war situation, there are certain contingencies that require certain measures you need to take speedily to address it before it gets out of hands. And that's what the speaker is trying to do, or perhaps the National Assembly is trying to do, holistically. But people that raise issues on the infectious bill, for instance, I don't really see the outcry from the point of sincerity, from the point of patriotism, because legislative process has a timeline. One, I don't see anything bad in the speedy nature. Even if that were a mistake, you can address the mistake through the National Assembly member themselves. For instance, one of the petitioners, so to speak, was the former senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, who has his members, his supporters, his friends, colleagues, National Assembly. If you feel like something, fundamentally wrong with the bill, there are ways of getting through. Going to the judiciary, you are raising a fundamental question that may negate the way we do things in Nigeria, that could, hurt the democratic process in the country. Because if one organ tries to stop another organ from working, you are setting a bad precedent. So let me go to the issue now. We are in a war situation. It's not only when you have contingency, insurgency, that you talk of war. We are in a serious war situation, and we need to. The Quarantine Act, for instance, which predated Nigeria independence, 1926, with due respect, gave too much power to the president. The president has the power by that act, in section 345, to declare any local place infected area. He has the discretion to do that. Nobody can check him. Today we have a father as a president. Today we have an humane person as a president. Today we have a caring man as a president. Tomorrow we don't know what's going to happen. Secondly, the Quarantine Act that gave the president the discretion of declaring the place an infected area, that gave him the power to regulate, that gave him the power of measures that you could take, to ameliorate that contagious or the spread of such infection, is in contradiction or in conflict with the National Health Act of 2014, which was an act of National Assembly. In other words, there's a conflict now. We have a National Assembly in place, elected people of Nigerian, people. So, and we have a predicted act, a statute, that tend to give all the power to the president or the governor, as the case may be.
So
there's need for a validation. There's need for a review. There's need to transfer that power back to the people in one way or the other. And this is what the Speaker and members of House of Rep are trying to do.
Okay, Professor Abubakar Sulaiman, we will go on a break now. And once we're back, what Nilds is doing to actually help address this as Knowledge Hub is what we'll be finding out more as we manage COVID-19, as well as some other areas of legislation in Nigeria. You're watching On the Spot, and my guest is the Director General of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, Nilds, Professor Abubakar Sulaiman. We'll be right back after this time out.
The coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, has been declared by the World Health Organization as a global pandemic. While clinical trials are ongoing for a vaccine and a possible cure, there is no known treatment for the coronavirus. Nigeria has recorded some of these cases, and people are advised to take these preventive measures to keep themselves safe and contain the further spread of the virus. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water, or use hand sanitizers all the time. Maintain social distancing. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Practice respiratory hygiene. If you have fever, cough, and difficulty breathing, seek medical care early. Do not panic. Stop the spread of unconfirmed news. Follow the official government news outlets and report all cases immediately. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, Africa's largest television network.
Welcome back. If you just tuned in, the program is On the Spot, and my guest is still seated, the Director General of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. Professor Sulaiman, before the break, we're talking about what obvious gaps could have been maybe in the presentation of the bills or the motion, as the case may be. And for a situation where the House is not sitting as in the full capacity like it used to, there will have been opportunities for maybe members of the public to come in, have their own contribution, and also to see, okay, the way the minds of the public. But really, take us through what it takes for Nilds to step into this, and how the public too can have the general buy-in alongside the same thoughts, and everyone is on the same page to see to the situation. Like you said, it's a war situation. It's survival first.
Yeah, I think our institute is, as Riley said, is a think tank. Our own is to provide the raw material for the National Assembly members. Our own is to enlighten the public on what the legislatures are doing, and perhaps assist them when there's need be. For most of these issues we are talking about, the controversial infectious disease bill, we have been making our own inputs. You know, as I said earlier on.
In what way are you reaching out to the public? Because I know, yes, somebody might say, okay, it's a service for the National Assembly or for the national, in quotes. Now, so how is the public?
One of our programs, activities, for instance, is to convene a public lecture series. We have public lecture series where we draw people, you know, all over. And besides that, we have postgraduate programs, we have students, we have an affiliations of University of Benin. We reach out to what I'm doing is part of advocacy in terms of enlightening people. We embark on training, not only for the legislature, for even other members of the society, like critical stakeholders in democracy. So that has been there. But on this one in particular, is how do we get the legislature engaged with the executive from the point of knowledge? So that part of knowledge, that's why we come in. That gap is what we feel now in terms of providing the necessary intellectual base for them to work with. For instance, in the last 1 month or 5 or 6 weeks of this, you know, lockdown and the easing of lockdown, we have assisted the legislature in drafting a lot of bills and motions. Beyond that, the lockdown, we can't be locked down forever.
Sure.
Every democracy, every economy is trying to ease the lockdown. They are trying to reopen the economy. We have provided enough blueprints for the legislature that we can work with. I won't go to detail of that.
Yes, you might not go to the details,
Yes.
but let's capture some, because across the country,
Yeah.
different states are affected or impacted in different manner. We still have cases where some 2 states are saying no situation of COVID-19 at all.
Yeah.
Definitely, there are people there represented at the national level, even at the state assembly, that are overseeing some of the activities. What kind of position? Because earlier on, you talk about the conduct and the skills for legislature. It's not because you've been in partisan politics or, well, maybe not partisan or whichever direction for a period. They obviously, you know everything. Definitely, different times are given to different results. Let's get an idea of what to do to actually help the people understand that alongside the legislators, and also bring good governance to the people at the end of the day.
You see, the Quarantine Acts gave the president power of declaration, power of regulations, power of measurements, power of approaching, the crisis. The same Quarantine Act gave the governor some power too. And don't forget, this is the federal government of Nigeria. So, if a governor says they don't have COVID, and there's no sign to show that they have COVID, let them be. The role the legislature can play here, especially the National Assembly legislature, is when it comes to the issue of oversight. Has there been any epidemics in Kogi State, in Cross River State? If there, let us look into it. But so far so good, they've not recorded anything like that. Even in terms of mass burial, mass deaths, that has not happened. So, and so to speak, if the governor said, no, don't come into my state, or when they come, follow certain guidelines, certain measures, it's for the governor to decide. And it's for the people. As long as the people of Kogi State, especially the parliamentarians in Kogi State, are comfortable with what the government is doing, I think we should allow distributing dog lie and concentrate on Kano and some other averaging states, other than this kind of push and pull. So I think that one is there.
Okay.
The legislature and National Assembly, don't forget, there is to make law. And now in this kind of crisis we have now, there are so many issues they need to deal with. The issue of legislation, the question of oversight. We are talking of palliative measures. Almost of these palliative measures that involve fundings need to be appropriated by the legislature. So there are a lot of work for them to do. And whether you like it or not, the COVID-19 has brought about a need for Nigerians to review the essence of governance at all levels. All sectors. I used to ask this question. We are getting close to election. And between primary and the main election, you have certain numbers of dates, and we have COVID, we have lockdown. What happens? Or election takes place. We need to transit from one government to another. The president must transit to another president, the legislature, and here we are locked down. What happens? You can talk of doctrine of necessity, Professor, under Yaradua, but here we are. So we are talking about a serious amendment of the Constitution. So I think it's a gamut of issue that we need to look into.
In 30 seconds, Professor Sulaiman, 30 seconds. The different arms of government, of course, demand from the people so much. But then, what do you think, or what should be the basic demand from the people of their government?
The basic demand is very clear. The economic well-being, their survival. But again, we are living in this serious situation now, where the resources are not there. We never envisaged this crisis. We have been talking about diversification. We've not been serious about it. Now, we have a serious issue to look at. We must diversify. The price of oil at the global market has crashed. The mainstay of Nigerian economy is this same oil. The resources is not there. We go borrowing. To what extent are we going to be borrowing money? So I think these are issues that we need to look into. So while government is trying to do its best, the followers too must show some resilience and understanding with what government is doing.
Professor Abubakar Olanrewaju Sulaiman, Director General, thank you very much for coming on the spot.
It's a pleasure.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Wish we have more time to talk more into other areas, but I'm sure we'll find time to bring you on again.
Thank you very much.
On another subsequent edition of the program. That's On the Spot for today. and I've been with the Director General of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. We appreciate your time. My name is Blessing Abu. Goodbye.